Welcome, creatures of the night, to another episode of the Macabre Maiden Metalcast. I'm your host, Ashen, and with me, as always, my partner in darkness, Jenn T.
Hey everyone, and today we are summoning a very special guest from the shadowy depths of Athens, Georgia, Vision Video, the band crafting the dance music for the end times. So welcome, Dusty. Very glad to have you.
Hey,
Hi there.
welcome,
Thanks for having me.
Totally our pleasure. All right. Well, we're going to get here with a few questions here, so hopefully we don't bore you too much. We're going to start off with the origins, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's dive in. So we know that Vision Video rose out of Athens, which is a city with a super rich alternative music history. How did that scene help shape your sound early on?
Yeah. Athens is kind of integral to what I've done with Vision Video because I grew up around here. When I was 17, I dropped out of high school and kind of moved from the countryside in Oglethorpe County, which is like when people say like the middle of nowhere, they're referring to Oglethorpe County in Georgia. And I moved to the big city, which is like laughable because Athens is a very small city. But to me at the time, it seemed like that anyway. And I moved here in the early 2000s. And, like I'd always kind of loved the town because even when I was a kid coming into town, it was always sort of this breath of fresh air to me, like being sort of a weird goth kid in high school and not having any sort of like communion or connection over that. And then coming into town and like going to record stores like the Wuxtree or Low Yo-Yo Records or School Kid Records and just seeing like all this culture around music, which is very important, and it still is. I think that informed a lot of my taste, going to record stores. And those record stores, like everything like Low Yo-Yo and Wuxtree still exist right now, which is amazing, especially in this day and age. So yeah, I mean, I would just hang out downtown and sort of absorb this culture of things that I wanted to have more a part of, but didn't have access to. So when I moved here officially, when I was about 17, I just fell in love with the place. And, like I saw my first show here when I was 14 years old. I saw the B-52s play, and it was like the first actual show that I've ever been to. And it was amazing. Like,
That's
and
awesome.
it was just like a really magical moment to realize like being in a room full of adults, because my high school girlfriend's mom got us into the show because she knows the owner of the 40 Watt Club. And she knew that we were like into the B-52s because, I was listening to a lot of like goth, post-punk, and new wave. And she was like, "Oh, do you guys want to go see the show?" So we did. She got us in, but we were like sort of unsupervised. It was very typical early 2000s moment, I guess. And we weren't like party animals. We didn't like drink or do anything, pretty innocent, like 14-year-olds. But anyway, I just remember watching the B-52s come out and just how like aggressively and unabashedly weird they were. And I was like, this is definitely for me, this is like amazing. And it was one of those first inclinations of being like, I want to do that one day, like, or be in something that's in something similar at least. It's so cliche almost, or at least it feels like it here in Athens, but like being a fan of like the B-52s and even more so like REM, like, I love early REM. It's like absolutely beautiful, sort of like defined like jangle pop, post-punk, like college radio rock. Murmur to me is like their first record. It's like it's a really seminal or post-punk record. And a lot of people kind of overlook them because they became like sort of the biggest band in the world for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think when bands get to that size, people go like, oh, well, whatever. It's just REM. But like, I grew up with this kind of stuff and like venerating these people. And I think a lot of that stuff, like Peter Buck's guitar playing from REM definitely like snuck into my purview of playing, and Ricky Wilson from the B-52s as well. So yeah, and it's like when I came back from the military in 2016 and moved back here, just like I think what's really important nowadays, especially is like the infrastructure of music is still very healthy here. So it's very easy to like start a band and like have a place to play, because in some smaller towns or cities, like, if you start a band, it can actually be really hard to book anything or just get a opening slot for like, even if your friend's the headliner or whatever. It's just hard because there's just so many bands. But here, we have a lot of bands, but we have a ton of venues and they're like of good quality. And yeah, so just being able to play and get your feet, on firm ground with it from an earlier stage of being a band really helped. So yeah, like I said, Athens is very much so a big part of what we have done with the band, and I mean the name
Mhm.
itself is actually referential to like there was a chain of like video stores called Vision Video, and
Mhm.
it was kind of the punk rock alternative to Blockbuster. Like
Mhm.
it was locally owned. There were a few locations, but they were all run by like college kids that went to UGA, and it was like when I first moved here, I remember I didn't have a driver's license for the longest time, for
Mhm.
like a good year of me first living in Athens, and uh, I'd take the bus everywhere or whatever. But I remember like going to there was a Vision Video across the street from my apartment complex, and I'd walk there all the time because I was too young to get into like bars and some of the venues because most of the places are like 21 up here. So I would just spend all my time like watching like terrible horror movies, and you could go get all the like weird cult movies and stuff at Vision Video. So
Yeah.
yeah, like the name itself is like a kind of a love letter to something that is now gone, but very much so a very Athens thing, and feels like, keeping it going to whatever extent.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Going back to something you said though kind of struck me as like it's funny you mentioned about like all the records and stuff because like I think I bought more records in like the last 2 years than like I ever had before.
Yeah,
I just have like a wall of them now for some reason. I think that nostalgia is kind of like hitting us real hard these days and keeps coming
yeah,
back because I saw people with fanny packs too. And that's
yeah.
like, that's coming back. And those, I never knocked them. I thought those were the coolest
No, they're
things.
I agree.
practical,
It's like,
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
you know how I
it's
feel about
definitely
mine.
I think there's
Mm
a really intense need for nostalgia societally right now because things are so bad in this country and like I mean globally as well, but like I think when things get really bad, people look back to things that provide comfort, and
hmm. Yeah.
nostalgia is like absolutely wrought with that. So
Mm hmm.
that's why I think, goth music and post punk music and like sort of dark goth aesthetic is back on the rise again because it's like,
Yeah.
this is familiar and this like harkens back, which I find ironic because like when all this stuff was first created, it was actually in like very similar circumstances, like, like a terrible like Republican president, like trickle down economics just utterly failing, mass
mm hmm.
inflation, mass unemployment, ecological devastation, threat of nuclear war. I'm like, oh, it's the 80s again. Cool.
It really
So,
is.
but
And I
I mean,
wasn't even in the 80s.
yeah, I think that like it's as long as you're not like worshiping nostalgia, I think there's a place for it. But
Yeah.
it's also like I look at the goth scene a lot, and I'm like, man, and don't get me wrong, like 90% of what I listen to is like considered like 80s, goth or post punk music. But
Mhm.
there's so much cool new stuff that's happening that doesn't really sound like that era, and I'm like, I really wish people wouldn't just like get fixated on this is the only way that this can exist. And
Mhm.
yeah, like
Mhm.
I mean, every subculture and especially music based subcultures have to have an identity and have to have like a left and a right limit, but they, if you're sort of staunchly gatekeeping everything and you're not letting any sort of innovation or shift occur whatsoever, then you run into sort of an inverse where everything just sort of atrophies and dies. And like, I think that happened a lot in like say the late 90s into the early 2000s with goth. Like when I first found this stuff, it
Mhm.
was very nominal. Like goth was very like super niche. Like nobody was into it in the early 2000s. And then all of a sudden like Interpol and like
Mhm.
Editors and all these bands that were like goth adjacent sort of reinvigorated it. And
Mhm.
anyway, I'm just like going on a tangent now, but
No,
like
it's
No,
okay.
yeah, you're right
I'm having a
though.
great time listening.
I feel like in that
it's
time
just
period,
a
it became more about the fashion than the music, and then
yeah.
it kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
circled back around to the music.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think a lot of people now are just, like, confused as to what it is, and I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, it's because dark aesthetic has just been sort of, like, copied and pasted throughout, metalcore,
Mhm.
these other, like, different, facets of subculture, especially musical subculture. And that's why it's like, to me, it's like very little has to do with aesthetic. I mean, it's definitely an element of the culture at large, but
Yeah.
it's like more about the scene to me, and like the music element, which fosters the scene, I think is the most
Right.
important aspect. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how I got into that whole tangent, but it's definitely an important aspect of what's going on right now. And I guess
Yeah, it is.
referring to nostalgia, like I think
Yeah.
that also just like that really insistent obsession with just like, there is this way and that's the only way. And I'm like, it's not quite the way you should look at it.
No, not anymore.
And especially with like younger people finding goth and post punk and the scene, especially,
Yeah.
I hope that if I have any real impact online or in reality, especially in reality, is I hope that people understand that's like, yeah, there's like I said, there's a left and a right limit, but like enjoy yourself and don't worry about all these like definitions and don't worry about all this stuff. Just like have fun with it
Yeah,
and
exactly.
stop like nitpicking each other over like really stupid shit that doesn't matter, because it
Yeah.
really doesn't. So
Mm-mm. As long as you're
anyway,
having fun and spreading the good word.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
That's how I
100%.
see it.
Like, be kind to each other. And I feel like the nostalgia is
Mhm.
just like a really comfortable place to be.
Yeah.
yeah,
And that's why, I don't know, you have to hold it near and dear. But
yeah,
like
Be
you were saying,
excellent to
just,
each other.
yeah.
yeah,
Bill and Ted said it
exactly.
right.
Yep, that's my movie. Well, you kind of mentioned it with a little bit, you talking about like REM and stuff, like, some of the artists that you have listened to early on. Uh, when you were listening to them, is there anyone that you just went to and you're like, man, I really like that? And then you kind of also mentioned a little bit, how it influenced your playing and writing, those kind of things. Do we kind of see any of those little spirits sort of like haunting your work these days? Is there any other bands or anything that sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of what I'm working on for the sort of next phase of musical work that I'm creating
Hmm.
now is very different, to be honest. Like, I think whereas Vision Video, and unfortunately, like Vision Video is like ending. Like, we have our
Sure.
last show on Saturday,
Hmm.
um, and it's all just because of like really stupid, petty legal shit that I can't like really go into. But
Sure.
you'll all
Sure.
know very soon what's going on because it's so stupid. But basically, like what even before I kind of understood that this was winding down, like
Hmm.
the stuff that I've been writing for the past like especially 6 months is it's like in a very it's in the same vein, but it's got the
Hmm.
same kind of voice and timbre in a lot of ways. But I think it's just a lot more aggressive. It's a lot more
Hmm.
like to the roots of like what I first loved about this kind of music, which was like that sort of divergent, nebulous, blurry area of punk and post punk where it was like
Hmm.
splitting, but it was still kind of like, well, is this post punk? Like, I don't know. This is still kind of punk rock, like, TSOL or like The Sound or like early Joy Division or,
Hmm.
whatever, like all that stuff where it's just like really intense. And a lot of that, I mean, I actually, in total honesty, I don't think of myself as like an angry person, like at all.
Sure.
When I was younger, I was like pretty angry, like all the time, just at the world and like this
Mm.
perceived sense of injustice of things and just being like ruthlessly bullied as like I said, like the goth kid of Oglethorpe County. Didn't make it any better. But
Mhm.
nowadays, like I just find it like there's so much in my personal life, especially things with the band that are out of my
Mhm.
control. But more importantly, like by far more importantly, like things that are happening in the world that
Yeah.
I am like so desperate to feel like I can change, but ultimately cannot as an individual. And it's really made me like quite angry. And I think that I'm just very glad that I have this like outlet for that anger, because not
Yeah.
that I would ever, do anything violent or vicious or anything like that. I
Yeah.
like to think that I have quite a control of my anger for the most part, but
I'm sure.
it's like it is definitely becoming my outlet for that venting of this sort of volcanic energy, and that's coming through in the music. So it's very like guitar driven and it's dissonant and just yeah, it's just pissed off. But I'm excited about that, like because whereas I've been sort of using this comparison of like, well, Vision Video was to like Secure as what this next thing will be to like Bauhaus or The Sound or like,
Mhm.
just like all that early post punk into goth stuff.
Mhm.
But you'll still, I think a lot of people will still find like familiarity with what I'm doing because like I do
Mhm.
like as much as I love the idea of like making this new stuff like super dissonant and weird and sort of like on that kind of like experimental edge, you listen to a lot of like Bauhaus records, like there's a lot of it. It's like this is like not even a song. This is just like noise, and it's and I kind of love that though. Like, but
Yeah.
I still believe in like, especially this day and age, like the message is the ultimately the most important thing. But it doesn't
Mhm.
matter how good your message is if the song is like not listenable and people don't care to listen to it. So I do believe in like a layer of just like melody that's a little inviting to be like
Mhm.
kind of buried underneath this sort of noisy, chaotic dissonance. But I'm also just I'm at a phase where like I'm starting over totally from scratch and it's a new name, it's a new band, it's a new everything. I mean, it's just literally quite really literally at this point, it's just me. There's nobody else involved. And I'm writing every aspect of it, which is, but that's all just to say it's like really exciting for me because
Yeah.
I've never really been on that ground before. Like when we started Vision Video, I was writing the songs. I've always written all of the songs, but like I was posting like stuff on Facebook like 7 years ago, and our original
Yeah.
drummer Jason was like, "Hey, that's really great stuff." Like I worked with him at a bar that I was at a music venue I was bartending at, and he was like, "Come over
Mhm.
and I'll put some drums behind it." So like very quickly, it organically evolved into having somebody else like there with me and like providing feedback and like doing things. But now
Yeah.
I miss that stuff like where you have people to like bounce ideas off of, but it's also like very liberating in the fact that I'm not being like, "Hey, what do you think?" And like, "Oh, well, I don't really agree, but we'll make compromise." Like right now I'm just like full steam ahead. I'm like, "I like that. We're doing that. Cool. High five, me." And
Good
it's
job, me.
yeah,
I
and it's
know.
cool. It's a little
As you should.
scarier, I think, because you have to be a little bit more like honest with yourself. Like, is this something that I like? Would I listen to this? Because art is personal, and when you put
Mhm.
down something, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But yeah, you have to be like objective about yourself and be like, is that cool, or are you just like fooling yourself? Like, but yeah,
It's cool to someone, right?
It
it's all
is.
good. It's all good.
Yeah. I
That's
guess
fair.
sticking with the beginnings or going back to how you started, even before Vision Video, you had a journey that went from a soldier to fireman or
Yeah.
firefighter, I'm sorry, to frontman. So when did the music become the outlet that really helped you process everything that you've lived through?
Yeah, I think I started like I've always kind of played guitar off and on. Like when I was a teenager, I picked it up and then I kind of put it down. I've learned keyboards for a while and synthesizers. I learned like how to create like sounds from, just like blank noise and like create sound waves through synthesis. And then I kind of put that down for a while and I was in the military. But really, when it was like kind of 2013, 2014, like when I was in Afghanistan, I like there was a cheap like beat up acoustic guitar on the forward operating base that I was on. And like the fob had always, there's always like a little room where there's like instruments or whatever, usually at the fobs. But I would just pick it up and take it to my little shack that I lived in. It's this like cinder block shack covered in sandbags. And I would play it like, kind of most nights that we were there, like, if we were not out on patrol or something and then we're there, I would just like play. And that felt like soothing. I wasn't really writing songs or anything. I was just like literally kind of relearning essentially. When we got back from the deployment, I was stationed in Germany. So I went out and bought this like what did I buy? I bought like an ESP, which is like they're kind of like more metal guitars, and I bought this Black Star amp from this old German music shop, and I just played like nonstop when I was at home at my apartment in Germany. And that was kind of I went and saw a lot of shows around that time too, like because I living in Europe, you could fly like anywhere, so I'd fly like to the bigger cities and super cheap, and I'd go see these shows like just and then fly back the next day. And that kind of I think that reinvigorated like the spirit of like wanting to do it. But yeah, like once I got home and left the active army in 2016 and came back here, that's when it really started to become like apparent to me And then even more so as I joined the fire department and like got through the training and started being back in like very traumatic spaces again and just understanding like this is a way for me to like take these complicated feelings about things and sort of craft something that expresses them into I guess a more constructive instead of destructive end result. Because like I've been there, I've been into very destructive habits. It's like I'm very much so. It's funny because it's like I have like hardcore alcoholism like genetically in my family and just like really
Mhm.
really addictive behavior, but I guess I just miss those genes because I don't like I can enjoy like drinking
Yeah.
and then or not. Like, I don't it's
Mhm.
I don't feel the compulsion to, like, I have to do this, but there was a time where
Right.
I was, like, 100% self-medicating, and I'd say, like, it's about 2018, 2019, where I was just, like, drinking in excess a lot, and it was, like,
Yeah.
totally just to numb myself of some of the really terrible things that I was seeing, like, all the time, especially in the fire department. I mean, just Metro
Yeah.
Atlanta, like, was a nightmare, especially during COVID and like, I
Right.
mean, the disease itself was terrible, and then
Sure.
everybody went crazy and started doing terrible things
It's
to each
true.
other. So it's
Yeah.
just a wild
Yeah.
time. But yeah, I mean, I think there was never like one succinct moment or time where I was like, this is the thing. But I progressively became more aware of like, oh, as I write this stuff, this is how I cleanse my mind's palate and sort of get this out instead of letting it like fester
Right.
because it's yeah, I mean, I think I don't know, like I can always tell like whenever I go on tour
Mhm.
singing these songs every night, you get a little bit callous to like what you're
Mhm.
singing about a lot of the time. But sometimes, it really hits me still and I always feel like I'm in a better mood when come back from a tour than when I'm leaving for a tour.
Sure.
And some of that's, like, because it's fun and it's, like, the most fun part of being a musician, but, like, it's also there is, like, a catharsis. I do believe in, like, sort of ritual and ceremony as humans, like, where we even if we're, like, sort of if there's a layer especially when there's a layer of, like, repetition to it, because it's sort of like it's like mantra, you're just, like, going through it and you're singing this stuff over and over again, and it sort of exercises yourself and provides strength to yourself. And then the
Yeah.
other half of it though is like other people come up to you and go like, "Hey, like this song Stay means a lot to me,"
Mhm.
or this song whatever, and you're just like, and they tell you their stories and sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you do also get that, like, that sort of, like, cycle or that circle of feedback that closes the loop of it, where you're like, "This means something to somebody else too, and I get to
Right.
enjoy that it's benefited other people because that's like, I write this stuff for myself. I tell people all the time, I'm like, "I wrote all these songs for me, to help me do that," not to sound selfish, but, like, it's for me and really no one else. But then once it's done, okay,
Mhm.
now I just hope the only other desire that I have is like two things. A, that people enjoy the song, and B, people find the same level of like catharsis or comfort, even just basic comfort out of just feeling like a little less alone. Because I think that's 90% of what we're trying to do as human beings all the time is
Yeah.
just like
Absolutely.
feel like understood, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
definitely. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Which actually kind of leads really into the next question, really, I was going to ask anyways. And you mentioned it a little bit before, but you've talked kind of like how the punk and goth scene aren't just like the makeup.
Yeah.
Which yeah, of course it's an element, but it's more kind of like resisting cruelty, ignorance, those kind of things. Do you how do you see those ideas like playing out in today's alt scene? Like you touched base on it, but do you see anything like going forward?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're at like a really important divergent point in I can't really speak for like punk. I mean, I go to punk shows here in Athens and it's pretty like intensely political here and like, people aren't like people actually believe in what they're saying and they're actually like involved in what they're doing and saying. But for like goth, I think we're at a divergent point where we have to kind of decide what not that there has to be like the charter of goth beliefs or like whatever, because I think that's like ridiculous. I mean, you're never gonna have like and you shouldn't have this like staunch like list of here are the rules, like, because that seems like a little contrary to the point. But we do have to decide, like, culturally, what is the sort of heart and soul of it. And, to me, like, especially having read, like, I'm a huge music history nerd and I read a lot of books about like other bands. Like I've read about,
Yeah.
Bauhaus, The Cure, Joy Division. I've read so many books on these bands, post punk in general and
Mhm.
goth in general. And while there's not like what I would call an explicitly political reverence, there is a implicit and internal political nature to all this stuff. And I think
Yeah.
most like sociologists and historians especially would argue that like almost everything has implicit and inherent politics to them. Like walking down the street as a
Yeah.
woman has politics,
Yeah.
Mm.
because like y'all have to worry about shit that I don't have to worry about and that I don't think about. Like I could
Mhm.
walk like where my wife's house is. There is a neighborhood next here that's like it's actually pretty fine now, but it used to be like kind of violent and dangerous. And I used to
Mhm.
actually live there way back in the day. But like I can walk down to that area and I will not like be worried at all.
Yeah.
But like if she were to walk down there,
You could be
probably
worried
not.
sick. Yeah.
She'd
Yeah.
probably have to be like, shit. And so there's politics to that because there's a lot of things at
Mhm.
play that we have to analyze, like in especially a sociological perspective. But regardless,
Absolutely.
like I think I see the rise of this, like there's this like space that's being given a candle to for some insane reason of these like people that want to participate in what they perceive as like cool, edgy, dark, whatever, but they're very like explicitly like Trump, MAGA cult, conservative,
Yeah.
red pill, whatever. And it's so deeply upsetting and disturbing to me because
Mhm.
what they're saying is like, we just want to look cool. And that's all this is. Never mind the fact that, like, for decades, queer people of color that like
Mhm.
were the progenitors of these subcultures
Right, right, right.
were walked upon, quite literally beaten down into the ground for creating and
Mhm.
facilitating. Uh, and now it's like, oh well, we don't care about you, trans woman, like, but I'm gonna wear my makeup and my cool goth clothes, and like I'm still gonna talk shit about you and your existence, and like without even understanding it, cause more violence to be projected against you because of that like speech.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's it's all just to say, like, I think we have to kind of decide, like, what does this really mean? And like,
Mhm.
what are we
Yeah.
doing this for?
Exactly.
Like, it's one thing to have music taste and just be like, I like the sound of that. But I think most people have to start being a little bit more discerning about why they like things and what it means to them and not just
Mhm.
take things at face value, because otherwise, like, we're all just wearing a fucking costume. And that's the
100%.
lamest shit
Yeah.
like ever to
Yeah.
me, is just
Truly.
being like, cool, look at me. Like, it's just so, because the whole point of this was to celebrate, like the macabre and
Mhm. Mhm.
understand this sort
Mhm.
of like preciousness of mortality and the beauty of life and death. And I think a lot of people, especially look back in the 80s, like with things that were happening, like, the AIDS epidemic, where thousands upon thousands upon thousands of young gay men were dying off in droves. And a lot of gay men were very much so involved in the goth and punk scenes, in the late 70s and early 80s. And it's just like, you have things like that happening, and you're like, well, could you imagine like if that was happening today and people are like,
Mhm.
well, these
Mhm.
queers aren't really allowed in this scene. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like, it's
You
just
can't pick and
so
choose. It's
so
not how it
maddening.
works.
Yeah, it's very much so cherry picking. And I think that, the other angle of it that I think we have to sort of like into the realm of analysis of is like,
Mhm.
how much are we willing to sort of commodify like subculture, like
Right, right.
insofar as like, and we all do it. I do it. We all do it. We buy like some fast fashion stuff, whatever. It's cool, but
Yeah.
like it's sort of against the nature of it because it's like we're just buying like uniforms at this point.
Right,
And
right.
we need to like, again, that's like, it's kind of similar to the music. It's like there's a left and a right limit, I guess, to some
Right.
degree. With aesthetics,
Yeah.
I think
I'd say so.
there's really not much of a limit, but like like we need to be aware of like what we're doing and like why we're doing these things and like what we're
Mhm.
facilitating with our money, with our time, with our attention. But yeah, I mean, I think it's at an interesting place because I in my 25 years of being part of the subculture or being like
Mhm.
at least interested in it, I'd say like 20 years of actually physically participating in it since I was
Yeah.
about like 18. I've never seen it in the state that it is now, like where younger kids are really like they get it and they care about it and they're like showing up and DIY everything and they're like
It's true.
they care about each other and they're like they're
Mhm.
building community in a real way, not just like on the bullshit internet kind of way. Like
Yeah.
and it's yeah, I mean, I think that they get it because they have like we've flirted with it in the early 2000s, but they've never had
Yes.
it and they're hungry for it. So, but we just have to be like, I don't know, like there has to be some regulatory like sort of abiding ethos, not regulatory, that sounds stupid, but like there has to be an abiding ethos of like this shit's not okay. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it doesn't have to be like when I say like goth is political, people are like, "Oh, you're just like a Democrat." And I'm like, "No,
No,
not
it's
even
always
close."
been
But
political.
but it but we can't accept that like people that are advocating for like the removal of rights of like queer and trans people and the
Mhm.
removal physically of like brown people just inherently like that shit is crazy and it's vile and it's disgusting and it has no
Mhm.
place in a scene that inherently celebrates, like being different, being
Mhm.
diverse,
Mhm.
being bizarre or against the mainstream, against hetero Christian, Judeo Christian normative kind of stuff. Like that's just such
Mhm.
a it's such a conflict of basic
It is.
It
ideology to
is.
me. It's like what so
100%.
that but that's where it goes back to just being like a costume for them. They don't
Yeah.
care.
No,
It's
yeah,
true.
we
I
100% agree, and I think we've had these conversations until we were breathless, Ash, and I just wanna
Yeah.
say too, thank you for putting that out there as a
Yeah.
Hispanic
Yeah.
woman
Yeah, I was
because
gonna
we
say
really need
that's what
more
I was
of
gonna
that
say.
advocacy out there.
Mhm.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
worried about you over there, man.
yeah, no, I'll be okay, but, fighting hard for those who are less fortunate than
Yeah.
I have been.
Yeah, fair. Fair enough.
This is a great segue, I guess, into the next question that we had for you, Dusty. You've used your platform for more than just music. We've seen the recent posts that touch on compassion, empathy, standing up against fascism and
Mhm.
hate. It's something super rare and powerful in the music world right now. So, I mean, you kind of touched on what's keeping you to drive that message front and center, but is there anything else that you'd like to touch on?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually talking before you came on in the lobby of this chat,
Mhm.
and we were talking about. Like, I actually just watched this documentary that I'd watched in 2017 called "White Right: Knowing or Meeting the Enemy," which is
Mhm.
it's by this Iranian woman who interviewed a bunch of like Nazis and white Christian nationalists and like KKK guys and stuff like that around the time that Charlottesville went down.
Mhm.
The thing that really got me was like, it was interesting that she's super like just very patient with them, but very, very direct at the same time. Like basically like telling them like, hey, I don't think that what you believe in is right at all. I think it's immoral. But when it's really interesting, and I highly recommend everybody watch it because when they're kind of all together, they're all like kind of riled up and they're in their heads and they're in their element of like all the racist rhetoric and all the bullshit. But when she's with them, like some of them take her like to their homes and she sees like how they live and like meets their families and stuff. And she gets to talk to them like one on one. And when they're sort of separated from this like group think, some of them really genuinely, very apparently kind of through discourse and like through understanding and through being like spending time with her because she's like, an Iranian immigrant, like, she's very outspoken against that ideology. But they start to like, she breaks through with some of them. And, I mean, I've been very like virulently against, the MAGA cult
Yeah.
mentality. And I absolutely always will be. And I don't think it's like,
Mhm.
I'm not saying like, just like if we all just like love each other, give big hugs, this will all go away. But I think that the approach that I need to start taking more, and that maybe
Mhm.
all of us do, is that we're
Mhm.
never going to like defeat this stuff by just being like, fuck you, like you're an idiot, you're a racist, blah, blah, blah. And then like those all
Mhm.
might be true facts, but
Yeah.
like, I think that we have to be able to talk to these people because it might be the only way other than like violence that
Yeah.
it
Mhm.
ends. And I just don't,
Yeah.
and violence is not like, I've seen like what a war does to people and it's
Yeah.
awful. It's just
It
it's
is.
so dark and you can't recover from it. It's there's once you've been to a war zone, it a piece of you is there forever. Like it never
Mhm.
comes back. And I don't know. I'm starting to think that maybe we all need to kind of do as she does in that documentary where she's just very like firm but patient and kind and empathetic and tries to be understanding and tries to find some level of commonality because these people, the way that I've really been understanding it through kind of rereading some historical analysis of like fascism and both
Mhm.
here and abroad, especially abroad, it's like these things dupe working class people into believing that this stuff is in their best interest. And
Right,
I
right.
don't think that most of these people are inherently like evil, like I think that
No.
I think when people do evil things because they get
Mhm.
convinced that it's the right thing to do and that there is an existential threat from things that they just simply don't understand because
Right.
whether it's lack of education or whatever, and they're just sort of like led along to these horrible actions that they support or partake in themselves. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I think the more that I understand that, and like, and I know it kind of like contradicts like what I was saying earlier about like being angry and like making angry music, but I think that like you can do both. Like you can still like express your anger in a healthy way
100%.
Mhm.
without
Mhm.
calling for violence or calling for like
Yeah.
and I need to be like, I just need to be more cognizant of that. Like,
Mhm.
because I think that while what I'm advocating for, like in the record we just did, a year ago, Modern Horror, it's
Mhm.
like, like you could look at the song like Balaclava Kiss, where I'm like, let's watch it burn, like,
Yeah.
and I mean
Yeah.
that like in a figurative sense, I
Yeah, of
guess.
course. Yeah, no,
But
no, that makes sense.
but yeah, just I think that there's never been a more valuable time to practice like radical kindness and empathy and just trying to like forgive things and to
Mhm.
try to move on. And that's something that's
Mhm.
like very difficult, but I don't know.
It's
It's
necessary.
totally
It is.
It
necessary.
is
Yeah.
necessary.
Yeah. Because a lot of them are just, like, really woefully ignorant too,
Yeah.
and I mean that
100%.
in a nice way, like,
Yeah.
not saying, "Oh, you're ignorant," but it's like, well, you just kind of tuned it all out because you
Yeah.
Yeah.
could, and you had that privilege to be able to.
Yeah.
And these
That
people
and this
aren't gonna
is
just go away either. Like, they're not just
right.
gonna disappear. Like, if we like oust Trump, right, in the next election, those people don't just go, "Oh, we lost, whatever," and then they just like go away. Like, no, that ideology continues to exist, and we have to
Yes.
find a way to
Mhm.
coexist because
Mhm.
the options are marginal now.
Yeah, and say it's not okay.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, you kinda given us a pretty good dad talk. So speaking of that, you have the nickname that a lot of people may or may not know of you as. I know that's where I found you back in the day was Goth Dad on social media.
Yeah.
So how has that online presence kind of shaped your connection with fans? I think I have a good idea, but I'd like to hear it from
Yeah.
you.
I think it's been good, I know it's been good. I think that a lot of people sort of put yeah, if it means something to somebody in a very genuine way, then it's great because I think that, a lot of people don't have father figures or whatever. And obviously like my 30-second videos are not like taking the the place of like an actual father figure. But I think it's just anything I think these days that provides any level of like healthy comfort or just like reprieve from the atrocity of existence these days, I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
It's also hard sometimes because like I never meant for it to be a thing. Like it was literally like kind of a joke at first, and then it
sure.
sort of evolved. But it got to a place where I was like, I don't know what to do with this anymore because I'm like, I'm not a dad. Like I have a really great dad, but I don't. There's only so much you can do with any one idea before it just starts like you're beating the dead horse or whatever. But you know, I think overall it's been really positive, and I think a lot of people found
Yeah,
the music and then find like what the music is about through that
mhm,
vehicle, which is cool.
agreed.
Some people sort of take it like way too seriously. I see a lot of like criticism of it online, which is fine. I don't take it to heart. because I'm like,
Yeah.
the amount that I take this seriously is like you're overestimating that. But I don't know, like, I like still hold on to the moniker and the character to some extent. Like I haven't really done much with it in like almost 2 years now, but like, I'm bringing it back at the end of this year. I'm going to start doing this like long form show on YouTube. That's more like kind of part horror movie host, part late night show format where I sort of interview interesting people and bring attention to music that I like and music videos and performances. And then, but there's also
Mhm.
like, some shticky little goth dad bits in there. And, I think it's like, to me, Goth Dad is always, I've always liked to say that like Goth Dad is not who I am. Goth Dad is who I wish I was. There's parts of me in it, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, well, Goth Dad as a character is sort of like ceaselessly patient and kind and empathetic and gentle. And I'm definitely like there I try to be those things, but I am human as we all are, and I fail to do those things very often. So
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
something to, but again, it's like, I think that's what any character is sort of these like
Sure.
champions or heroes uh in and of their own creation that people can look to and go, that's really cool and we should be that, like, I really, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which is so like
Mhm.
lampooned and ridiculous in a way, but, like, when you watch it now as an adult, you're like, "Wow," like, Fred Rogers was, like, he was really good at, and obviously, like, he was a human being. He probably did fucked up shit at some point in his life, like,
100%.
we don't know about it, but everybody does something in their life that they're not proud of, that they're ashamed of, and that's being a human, but, like, he provided this calm, stable, beautiful, wonderful program for people to watch, especially kids to watch and go, "That's something that I should be like." And it even does that for me, like, when I'm creating those things, it's like, it's like I almost need like a "What would Goth Dad do?" Like the "What would Jesus do?" bracelets back in the '90s.
Do
Like,
it.
yeah,
Yes.
like, and that's, it is like, I think there is like that installation in my brain now at this point that's like, don't do that because that's kind of fucked up and got that wouldn't do that. So like people will be upset if you do that thing that's not
Mhm.
exactly right or whatever. So for me it's a checkpoint as well, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just it's also it feels like everything in the past like 3 years happened like that, and I just never really was able to like catch up with it or like take stock of it. Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to me, and it's definitely like creating that character and like having that online. I think ultimately was a really good thing because it helps at least give some people something to feel comfort in,
Yeah.
or reprieve, or whatever, or just like a moment of levity, or if not just for a good dad joke. I don't know, but I enjoy it and I'm glad that people enjoy it, but I also like do wish on the other side of it that people would just like not think that I'm like running, like I don't like run around my house being like, what is Goth Dad gonna do today? Like I don't like, I just, it's just so ridiculous.
Completely fair and valid.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. And those cardigans, though, they're pretty lit. They're
They
pretty
are. I
lit.
do wear those in public though, actually,
I
Perfect.
love that.
very
And I
regularly
mean, it
because
is
it's
winter
like
weather, so we hope to see some soon.
the cardigan is the best piece of clothing for Georgia because it gets really cold here at night during the late fall and the into the winter, but in the day it'll be like roasting hot. So
Yeah.
it's like a light thing that's just warm enough at night. Anyway,
No,
good
Yeah.
stuff.
so true.
100%. I know. I love my cardigans.
Yeah, same. And I completely resonate with the Georgia stuff too. I don't know if I've told you, Ash, that I went there a couple of years ago and I was like burning up in the middle of the day, but by nighttime it was like 50 degrees and I'm
Yep. It
freezing.
It
is
makes
a
no sense.
Oh,
neck-breaking shift in temperature
It
sometimes, like,
is
it's
weird.
it'll be
such a
80
wild
and then
shift.
it's 50 and you're like, "You can't
What is
dress
going
for
on?
anything."
Mm.
No, and then I was in Virginia for tech school, and it was like the same sort of shit. Like, and then there would be like a flash flood out of nowhere. Are you
Yeah,
guys
Oh,
okay over there?
that's not
yeah,
terrifying.
not fun.
All right, yeah, but just to keep it going, because I know we have to start wrapping up soon here. Recently on your socials, you mentioned that nothing is set in stone. It looks like it might be the end. I know you kind of mentioned here with the legalities and such aside.
Yeah.
that this could be like Video's final tour. We were wondering that if you were comfortable talking about it, what can you share about where your heads and hearts are right now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is unfortunately the end. I've kind of without going too far into it because like kind of can't as of yet, just
Mhm.
for legal purposes.
Mhm.
I tried to resolve all this stuff through the appropriate channels. I tried to get through to this individual that is sort of legally coming after me for the most petty, like unfounded thing,
Yeah.
but it didn't work out. And I talked to my lawyer and he was like, look, you can spend 70, 80, 90 grand to defend this and you'll win because you have this massive body of evidence to substantiate whatever you're saying.
Right. Mhm.
Like Vision Video doesn't make that much money. I don't have 9 grand to
Yeah,
defend this.
that's
So
Yeah, yeah,
a
right.
lot for anybody to recover from.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's just like a lot of it has to do with like the fact that things weren't written down and anyway, it's kind of a long story that I can't go into at
sure,
this point,
of
but
Yeah.
I
course.
mean, it
Yeah.
also like it became and I've been dealing with this for like almost a year now, and it's just become such a like vicious, like cancerous, malignant thing that I'm honestly, as much as I'm sad that the name is going away and
Mhm,
like sort of this special thing that has like connected me to so many people and
mhm,
that so many people have found comfort in and found like realness in uh there's a part of me that's very sad that that's going away, but then there's also a part of me it's like super glad that it's dying because
yeah,
I,
sure.
as a human being, like I have lost so much sleep over this, and it's just been
Right.
it's just been on my mind like rumination constantly, and like
Mhm.
it's like you cannot live like that. You cannot sustain that because it just saps you completely. So,
Yeah, I can
100%.
imagine.
the reality is like this could have been handled in such a like reasonable, civil sort of way. But with this ending, the party that is coming after me is
Mhm.
going to get nothing because it's over. And it's just like, well, you should have done this, and then we could have all moved on. But it's just so sad that it has to be like that. But at the
Yeah,
same right, like I'm very, very excited to like put it 6 feet under, keep on with the spooky, metaphor, and
yeah,
like just put the dirt over it and walk away. And I will walk away very fast because I've already mourned it. I've spent all
yeah,
like the past like month like mourning this thing
of course.
and until it's kind of done and the legal nonsense is sort of over, I can't really quite get through that doorway to start the next things.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of getting there. But it's also provided me like kind of to go back to what I was saying about like what I'm working on next, like it's provided me with this like level of excitement to do the next thing that I haven't felt in a long time because
that's
one
good.
thing one thing that
Yeah.
happens, I think inevitably, and I think this happens to anybody that creates any kind of art that turns into their career and their like job and their source of income is that like the magic never goes away, but it's harder to find. And to
Mm,
me, the magic is like when we first started to like grow and we were writing songs and doing all this stuff, like I felt it all the time. And I was like so excited. And I was just like, man, I can't wait to go play this show and do this thing. And now I find it like when I'm writing and something really cool happens like out of the ether when you're writing, because it's like that to
yeah,
me is inherently magic. Like you're just making it's like alchemical magic. It's like you're creating something from nothing and it just
mhm,
happens. That's cool. And then when you're playing a show and it's just like the feeling of being in front of people and you can see people enjoying it and it's just really moving and intense. But again, that feeling is harder to obtain and that satisfaction. But right now I feel very much so like the same feeling I felt or the beginning of it
mhm,
to sort of not have this thing looming over me and I can just freely think about what's next and what do I want to create? What do I want to say? What kind of music do I want to put out into the world?
yeah,
And yeah, I'm so ready for that. I'm so excited for this energy to sort of be back in because it's a fresh start. It's like it's a
Yeah.
new name, it's a new identity, it's even like sonically very different. I mean, you'll still know it's like me, because I mean I have a songwriting style, but the tone is different, and the energy
Sure.
is a little different. It's a little bit more, rock and roll. It's a little bit more old school.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I just it feels like going back into like uncharted territory, which I think
Nice.
is one of the most exciting parts of being an artist, is like when you're just sort of breaking new ground and being like, what is this and what does this mean to me, and how does this affect my life and what I'm trying to do with my life. And yeah,
Yeah.
so it's going to be
Sounds really
cool.
refreshing, to be
Yeah.
It
honest.
does.
Yeah.
It's just, planting the seeds for something new. But you do have to do a cover of Rock Lobster. Absolutely.
Man,
Bring it back to
Please.
the B-52s. I
that's
love
such
it.
a
I
bop.
love that song. I love that song. I grew
It's
up
so
with that
much
silly
fun.
little thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a bop. And I know there's like heated online debate about like, is this a goth song? And I'm like,
It can
I
be.
mean, whatever, who cares? But it's funny because if you take like Bite My Hip by Bauhaus, which became Lagertija Nick later,
Mm-hmm.
and you listen to that song and then you listen to Rock Lobster, it's the same fucking song,
Yeah, right?
basically.
Like,
But,
come on.
whatever.
Just be more open-minded. Well, speaking of not at all Rock Lobster in any way, shape, or form, that was, some pretty heavy stuff to talk about, kind of putting one thing down and saying rest in
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
So I would like to end it on kind of a little bit of a high note. So
Yeah.
we're going to get you for a lightning round.
Okay.
So don't overthink anything. Just shoot out the first answer that pops into your head.
Got it.
So I'll start with the first one and you'll get it after that. I know it. All right. So favorite scary movie?
Return of the Living Dead. Absolutely. It's so
Amazing. All
Good
right.
choice.
Favorite punk or post-punk band ever?
good. Ever. The Chameleons, for sure.
Ooh.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay.
I like that. That's a deep cut. If you could play one gig inside of a horror movie, which film would it be?
Uh, I would play something to the kids that were in the haunted house in Night of the Demons. And the only reason why I say that's because, like, that's when I first heard Bauhaus was Stigmata Martyr. But that
No,
would be
that's totally
probably
fair.
bad for me because I would be killed by demons. So, whatever.
Well,
It'd be worth it.
You just got the music. So, I mean, maybe you're kind of like, you got plot armor.
Yes,
there you
yeah,
go.
right.
There you
You
go.
set the vibe.
Yeah.
If you believe in the thing, what's the most haunted place you've ever been?
My aunt and uncle's farm in New Hampshire. It was built in like the late 1700s, and that place is fucking creepy. Like,
Ooh.
yeah, I don't like. I'm not sure if I believe in like spirits, but whatever that is, it's
There's just
happening in
some
that
energy.
house. Yeah, yeah, and I've like experienced stuff there. It's like yikes.
Interesting.
That sounds spooky. Okay, how about your dream festival lineup? So 3 acts. It can be dead or alive, active, non-active, whatever you want.
Okay, I'd say The Cure. I won't say the Chameleons because we've already played with them, but we'll go with The Cure, The Sound, and I don't know, probably Joy Division. I mean, I know it's like super cliche and on the nose, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, I would. That's a band that I would just have loved to have seen live because I think that they were like they're a band that you can tell was just phenomenal live. Like, I mean, their records are really good, but even just like watching old footage of them, like they were so intense, and the footage sounds like shit, but like you can tell it was cool while they were playing.
It's a feature. It's a feature.
It is. It
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
All right. Favorite guilty pleasure songs that the fans would never expect?
What's that guy's name? Christopher Cross. Sailing.
I love that.
Wow.
Sailing takes me
Yeah.
away to a
Wow,
song
that
is
just
really
unlocks
beautiful.
some memories.
It's a good
Yeah.
one. I've been
Wow.
crushing that like over the past year, especially.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. I like some yacht rock,
Yeah.
but I think actually, and this is probably not that surprising, but I listen to probably the thing most that I listen to other than like post punk and punk is like Motown, like 50s, 60s, 70s
Okay.
soul and
I'm digging
R&B. I love that stuff because the vocals and the lyrics are so like beautiful, and just some of the best vocal performances ever
Yeah.
came out of Motown.
They,
Just so
yeah,
good.
100%. I
It's very
agree with that one.
comforting.
All right, Ash.
Okay. With Halloween coming up, of course, we have the obligatory Halloween question. What is your favorite Halloween candy?
That's a tough one because
Mhm.
I don't know that I have any like one. I mean, I'm definitely like a Butterfinger guy,
Okay.
but
Solid choice.
I also really love an Almond Joy
All right.
because it's
All
got a
right.
little bit. It's like it's a multifaceted candy. You know, it's got like the coconut, it's got the chocolate, but then it also has the almond, which is just I
It's
don't
got a
know.
little bit of
It's
everything.
Yeah,
healthy.
it's like creamy, but it's also
Coconut almond.
crunchy. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's
Clearly it's
totally
healthy.
healthy. It's so
Yeah, really
healthy.
good for you guys.
I just ate a whole bag of it. I'm super healthy now.
Yeah, you got all of your, your fruits in there. Good job.
Yeah, exactly.
It's better than my favorite, which is candy corn. I know,
Candy corn's
controversial.
pretty candy corn's underrated, though. I think a lot of people hate
Thank
on
you.
candy corn. I mean, like, there's very few candies I feel like are terrible, like a circus peanut, that's terrible. That's just
That is
like
terrible. It's
that's
They are.
just
awful.
They taste like
styrofoam with
plastic.
sugar on it, but, like, candy corn is okay, I can stay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd give
Thank you
candy
very
corn a
much for that.
solid 5.
That's very validating.
All right. Who is the biggest scaredy cat in the band?
Ooh.
Well, as of its latest iteration, we had Steven from Scotland playing, and he's a very big, gruff, not gruff, but like big, burly Scottish man. But we took him here, in Georgia. We have these spiders called Joro spiders, and they're an invasive species of spiders that have popped up in the past like 10 years, but they're like really big. Like the body is like the size of my thumb, and the leg
Nah.
span is like 3 or 4 inches sometimes,
Burn it all.
and they make these massive, beautiful but massive golden webs that are very tough. He walked into a web and he was like, no, no, fuck that, fuck. And he like, I've never seen anything like he just was like, oh, I'm not going back there because we are going to check out my backyard. And he was like, no, I'm no. And he was
I don't blame
serious.
him.
So I'm
I've
gonna
I
seen
give
don't
that
them.
blame
one to
him either.
Steven.
They're
That's
like
horrifying.
the Joro spiders are like snow. They're like beautiful from afar, but you don't want to be anywhere like
No,
near that.
they are spindly. Ugh, yeah. I'm not a huge
Ugh.
spider fan. Like
Mm-mm.
when I was a kid, I was terrified. I've gotten to a level where I'm like, okay, I'm all right with it, but like I still don't love it. It's like it's not
Mm-mm.
something I want on me or anything
Yeah.
like that.
That is not okay. And like in the background, I'm just Lullaby by The Cure is playing, and
There you
just
go.
this spiders. Just
That's the only acceptable version of a spider is like Robert Smith crawling up
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
wall. That's
I mean, I'll
okay.
take it. I'll take it. Okay, okay. Speaking of The Cure, what is one word that describes the goth scene today? Just first one that pops in your head.
First thing that pops into my head is honestly diverse.
Mm,
The only reason why I say that is because in comparison to, and this is obviously super dependent on where you live too, but like
sure.
in comparison to what it was like when I was young getting into this stuff, because it was very white. It was very like white, like Anglo, whatever.
Yeah,
And I very much so see a massive difference in that. And that brings me so much joy. It makes me
Same.
so happy to see different kinds of people, different ethnicities, different colors, different
hmm
everything. And it's just beautiful. I love
it
that.
is. It is.
All right. Last lightning question. Best eyeliner recommendation.
Mm.
Easy for your liquid eyeliner purposes. I tell the kids all the time, you don't need to spend a bunch of money. NYX Epic ink, #1 with a bullet. I mean,
That's what
it's
I
cheap.
use.
It's like 5 to 10 on where you get
Perfect.
it. And it is like smudge, it's transfer proof. And once that shit is on there and you put it under some setting spray, it's not
It's
coming off.
yeah, it's
You're good to
on.
go. You are set.
Okay, I
I love
definitely
it.
need a new
I love it.
eyeliner.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, you can get it. That's the nice thing about NYX is like you can get it at Ulta or Sephora, but
hmm
you can also get it at like CVS, or
Hell
wherever.
yeah.
It's literally everywhere. It's
Everywhere.
awesome. Yeah.
I'm so bad
All
with makeup.
right. So I guess we'll move into wrapping it up because I know you have places
hmm
to be, Dusty. But this
hmm
has been an awesome chat. Thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
Yeah,
us.
thank you for having me.
Yeah,
For
this has been
everything,
super fun.
yeah, everything
Yeah.
that you've given the scene, etc. And I'm happy to see with this store closing, the brand new one's opening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna bring great things. So
Thank
got
Yeah,
you.
great
for
energy.
Yeah.
sure.
I'm
For
excited,
sure.
and it's I think this is a really important time in my life, but I think in
Hmm.
for a lot of people like right now I feel like a lot of people have been going through really big shifts, and it feels, I mean, I'm
Huge.
not like huge into like
Yeah.
astrology or anything, but like one of my friends that is very much so into that did a reading for me. She does some readings for me every now and then. Hi Britta, if you're listening. But and the theme of things as of late has been like massive
Transition.
change and sort of putting things down and moving on. And I was like, "Pff, that's kind of eerie." Yeah. I'm just excited. And I think that people are going to find that what I'm working on is very different, but there will also be a level of familiarity, and there will be a lot of excitement around it because it just nails something that I've been trying to nail for the last, like, there's a lot of, like, I'll put it to you this way, that, like, I love modern horror, the last record, but there's a
Mhm.
little bit of stuff that I was like, I almost nailed what I was trying to do with that, and I didn't quite get there. But with this new stuff, I'm like, yes, this is the thing that I was trying to really hit. So yeah, I
Nice.
think people are gonna really dig it. I hope so.
I can't
I
wait.
think so too.
Yeah.
I kind of came in, I was like a little sad for you, but now like I'm feeling inspired. Like I think I'm gonna
Yeah.
start a band.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, do it.
We keep talking about
Just
that.
don't make it your career.
God no.
Be the side hustle.
I literally tell, like, musicians, like kids that are like, I want to play music and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay, do it with the intention of not making your career. If it happens, cool, but just make it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Don't try to be like, I'm going to make money off this, because A, it's like very, very, very deeply difficult, and B, like,
Yeah.
it's kind of a nightmare also.
Yeah.
I can imagine. I
Don't
can
take the joy
imagine.
out of it. So
No, just enjoy it. Well, with that, take that to heart, dear listeners. I will say thank you one last time because it's been super fun and I've learned a lot, really, truly.
Heck yeah.
So, for everybody listening, keep your eyeliner sharp, your hearts dark, and your spirits high. Until next time, stay macabre.